So we want to make sure that we turn on our stat diagnostics first by going to mode. All right, go down to stat diagnostics, turn on your stat diagnostics, and then we go to stat edit so that we can type in our data into our L1 and L2. When you're looking at your data table, you're not going to type in the years. Years always start with 0. Anything else that you have, like months or days or maybe innings of a baseball game or something like that, you're going to start with 1. But it's very, very important that you remember that years start with 0. I would actually take a piece of scrap paper somewhere or a Post-it note or something and write that down, because that's very, very important to remember, because you won't get the right answer if you start it with 1. Years are the only thing that starts with 0. So when we're taking a look at this column, we're going to start with 2007 as 0, 2008 as 1, 2009 as 2, 2010 as 3, 2011 as 4, 2012 as 5. It says the table shows the attendance for the annual spring concert at the high school for 6 years. Predict the attendance in 2016. Well, notice that our data table ends in 2012. We need to keep on going. We need to keep on going with that data table and make that data table longer. So 2013 is going to be number 6. 2014 is going to be number 7. 2015 is going to be number 8. And 2016 is going to be year 9. That's going to be important when we go to make our prediction. So those are the things in our L1. The attendance numbers are going to be in our L2. So going back over to our calculator, we want to type in these numbers. So go ahead and do that. Type in your numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to use the arrow keypad to get over into your L2. And then we want to type in the attendance from the data table. So 789, 805, 773, 852, 884, 902. And you should be doing this with me, right? You should be typing it into your calculator as well. I'll give you a couple seconds to catch up if you fell behind. So now that we have the information from our data table into our L1 and our L2 columns, now we want to figure out our regression equation, or the equation of the line of best fit or trend line. All three of those terms mean the same thing. So when we have our regression equation, we're always going to have a y equals and an x. Instead of y equals, you could also use the f of x. It all depends on what you want to do. Either way is perfectly acceptable because they mean the same thing. So the way that we're going to find this out, and we also have to find out our correlation coefficient, all right, our R value. So the way that we're going to do this, now that you have your stuff typed into your L1 and L2, we need to go back to the stat button. And now we're going to run our calculation. So we're going to do stat and then calc. So once you hit stat, you need to hit the right arrow key, all right, over to calc. We want to do number 4, which is the linear regression. So we need to tab down to number 4 and hit enter. Once you hit enter, it's going to ask you, do you want to use L1 and L2? Yes, we do. We want to use L1 and L2. So all that we're going to do is go down to calculate and hit enter on calculate. When that happens, it gives you all this information. So notice that we have that same type of equation. We have y equals ax plus b. Over here, we have y equals and we have our x. The a value from your calculation goes in front of the x. Now, what to round to? What you round to is when you look at your data table, whatever your data is rounded to, that's what you're going to round to. So we rounded to, in our data table, we have to the nearest whole number. So that's what we're going to do over here as well. We have 25.17, blah, blah, blah. We're just going to round that to be 25 because we're rounding to the nearest whole number. Then our plus b, our b value says 771.238, blah, blah, blah. Again, we're going to round it to the nearest whole number. That is a positive 771. So we're going to do plus 771 because it's positive. That is our linear regression equation, or line of best fit, or trend line. That's the line that goes up through the middle of our data. We're going to use that equation now to make our prediction. Our question said, predict the attendance in 2016. We figured out that 2016 is the 9th year. So there's two ways to figure out this answer. One of the ways that you could figure out this answer is take this 9 and sub it in for X. We could take that 9 and sub it in for X. So we would have 25 times 9 plus 771. And you could just type that right into the calculator. If we wanted to type that into the calculator, we would have to hit second and quit, which is the second and mode button to get back to just the normal blank screen. And we could type in 25 times 9 plus 771 and hit enter. We get our answer of 996. That is our prediction. That is our prediction for 2016. All right, that's one way that you could find your answer. If you didn't want to do that, you could do it a different way as well. You could do y equals and type in your equation, your linear regression equation, 25x plus 771. We could type that into our y equals and then do second and table. And we could go down to year number 9 and notice that again, it is 996. All right, notice again that it's 996. So two totally different ways that you could do it. You could either sub in your 9 in for the x or type it into your y equals and look at the table. Either way is fine. Now, if I go back, I'm going to go back to my data here. So when we take a look at our data, remember, you ignore the r squared value. We're not going to use the r squared value. For your correlation coefficient, or r value, we want to look at r equals. Now, when we look at r equals to find out the r value or correlation coefficient, we need to think of these numbers that we talked about yesterday. Looking at 0.88. Sometimes they're going to ask you to round your r value to the nearest hundredth. Remember, the nearest hundredth makes it look like money, so there's 2 decimal places. So this would really round to 0.89. On your quiz later on this week, they're going to ask you to round to the nearest thousandth. So that would be 0.889. All right, either way, that falls within this range, 0.7 to 1. So it is a strong correlation. And because this is a positive number, it would be a strong positive correlation because it's a positive number. On your homework today in class kick, you're going to have to say, is it strong, moderate, or weak, and whether it's positive or negative. If the r value, the number here is positive, it's positive. We're going to come across ones that have a negative r value as well. So again, strong is in between 0.7 and 1.0. So this would be a strong positive correlation. And so that is one complete question. We would say that our r value, if we were rounding to the nearest hundredth, is 0.89. Questions on number 2. Let's take a look at number 3. So number 3 says the table shows the average gas price for 6 months. Predict the average gas price for August. So we have January, February, March, April, May, June. The next month would be July, and then we would have August. So remember what we said on the last slide, years start with 0, Months, days, and everything else start with 1. So January is going to be 1. Years are the only thing that start with 0. February would be 2, March would be 3, April 4, May 5, June is 6, July is 7, and August is 8. So again, we want to come up with our regression equation. So we're going to have y equals some number and x, or instead of y equals, if you put f of x equals, that's the same thing. And then we want to find our r value as well. So again, you're going to go to stat edit, and you should be doing this with me, stat and edit. Now notice that our L1 starts with 0. We don't want 0. All right, now we have to start with 1. So I need to change all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to tab over to my L2. Let me show you a little cheater way. All right, let me show you a little cheater way to erase the whole column at once. If you go up so that you're highlighted the L2, and then if you hit the backspace button and down, backspace and then down key, it will erase the whole thing. So go up to L2, hit the backspace button once and then the down key, and it will erase that whole column. So now we can type in 315, 322, 319, 328, 335, and 332. I'll give you a second to type those in. So now that we have those typed in, now we want to go to stat and calc. So stat, calc, we want number 4, which is our linear regression. It's asking you, do you want to use L1 and L2? Yes, we do. We didn't change those at all. So we hit enter, and this is what we get. So for our number that goes in front of our x, that is our a value. Again, we want to round it so that it looks like our data. So we're going to go to the hundredths place, which is 2 places after the decimal point. So this is going to round to be 0.04 in front of the x because it was 0.038. So it rounds to be 0.04. Our b value, our plus whatever, is going to be rounded to 3.12. So that's our linear regression equation. We now need to make a prediction for August. So we want to take that 8 and sub it into there. So we're going to have 0.04 times 8 plus 312. And again, I could just go to second and then quit and type this right into the calculator like a normal equation. And I get $3.44. So for the month of August, whoops, 344. This is a 4. So 344 is my prediction for August. For our R value, if I go back to stat calc, go down to number 4. For my R value was 0.913, blah, 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 blah. If I'm rounding to the nearest hundredth, it would be 0.91. That would represent a strong positive correlation. Strong because it's in between 0.7 and 1. Positive because it is a positive number. Mia, you need to turn on your stat diagnostics. When you were late, we did that. That was the first thing that we did. You need to go to your mode button and go down to stat diagnostics and turn them on. Questions on number 3? All right, let's take a look at question number 4. So question number 4 says the table shows monthly record sales of a recording artist over 6 months. Predict the record sales for December. So we have January, February, March, April, May, June. We need to figure out July, August, September, October, November, December. Remember that years start with 0. Everything else starts with a 1. So January is 1, and we're going to keep on going down and numbering these months until we get down to what we want. Remember, we want December. So July is 7, August 8, September 9, October 10, November 11, and December is 12. So that 12 is what we're going to be subbing into our equation. We're going to have y equals and our x, or you could have f of x equals. We also want to figure out our r value. So let's go to stat and go to edit. I want to show you something that you might accidentally do at some point in time. Our numbers of our months are exactly the same, so we don't have to change our L1 at all. But go over to L2. Now, if you accidentally do the following, please watch carefully what I'm going to do, because I'm going to do something and you're going to go, oh crap. All right. So if I accidentally go up to L2 and if I hit delete, all right, if I hit the delete key on my keyboard, notice that L2 disappeared altogether. All right. Some people might go, oh my God, I don't know what to do. All right. It's not a big deal. All right. I'll show you what to do with L3. L3 works the same way. You could actually type in like up to 6 things all at once. All right. We just have to change when we do our calc. We just have to change what columns we're looking at. So for our L3 values, let's type in our L3 values, or if you're still in L2, that's fine. All right. So we have 60,000. We have 54,000. Remember, the most common mistake that people make in this is typing in the wrong values. If you have even one number typed in wrong, it's going to screw up all of your data. So I'll give you a chance to type that data in. So now that you've typed in that data, now we need to go to stat and calc and go down to number 4 again, which is our linear regression. That's the only one that we're using. Here's where if you accidentally delete one of the columns, like I deleted L2, all right, this is where you need to change it. Notice that it's asking you, do you want to use L1 and L2? I don't have an L2 column anymore, so I can't use L2. Please take a look at the screen right now. See where my 3 button is? See where my 3 button is? Notice the blue letters right above it, and I wish I could make it bigger, but I can't. Notice the L3 right above it. So when we take a look at the L3, to get to that, that is a blue letter. All right, so that is for second. So in order for me to change this to be L3, I need to hit the second button and I need to hit the 3 button. And notice now it changed it to L3. Notice that there's L4, L5, L6. All right, we have all of those in there as well. But I need to use L3 now because I accidentally deleted the L2. All right, so now I'm going to go down to calculate just like I did before. So we rounded to the nearest whole number in our data table. So we want to round these values to the nearest whole number. So negative 5,571. That's going to be the number that goes in front of our x because that's our A value. The B value this time, look at that. It has it right as a whole number, 68,000, which is nice. So that is our linear regression equation. So now to make our prediction for December, all right, we need to take this 12 and sub it in for x. So we're going to have negative 5,571 times 12 plus 68,000. Or again, you could type it into your y equals and look at the table. Either way that you do this, you should get an answer. You should get an answer of 1,148. Should get an answer of 1,148. Our R value, notice our R value. Our R value is negative this time. Our R value is negative 0.93 if we were rounding to the nearest hundredth. So be very careful. Notice that that negative sign is in front. A lot of people, I'm telling you, it's a very common mistake on the quiz. A lot of people lose this negative sign for some reason. Why is it negative? It is negative because our data is going down. Notice we started at 60,000 and our data keeps on going down and down and down and down. That's why this A value is negative also. Questions on number 4. All right, I'm going to have you try this next one on your own, please. All right, I'm going to get you started on it. So we're looking at the table, shows the number of miles Kata traveled for work each year for 6 years. Predict the number of miles in 2014. Remember, years start with 0. So that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We need to make a prediction for 2014. Go ahead and try this problem on your own. If you need help typing stuff in, please let me know. Remember, you want to go to Stat and Edit. Oops. Going to give you about another 30 seconds or so. So once you typed in the data, you should have had the same data that I had there. You got to hit Stat and then Calc. We need to go down to number 4, which is our linear regression. I want to use my L1. I'm using L3. You might be using L2. And so we have negative 335. That's the number that goes in front of your X. I'm going to round to the nearest whole number here. So plus 8303. Our R value is negative 0.90. That would represent a strong negative correlation, strong and negative. We need to, for our prediction for 2014, we need to sub in our 8 in for X. So you would have negative 335 times 8 plus 8303. And you should, if you did it correctly, you should get 5,623. Questions on that one? All right, seeing no questions, we're going to try the next one on our own too. Go ahead and try this one. Now be careful. This one starts with months. Remember, years are the only thing that start with 0. So this is going to start with 1. You're looking to make a prediction for November. Go ahead and try this one on your own, please. So when we take a look at this, all right, I typed in my data for 1 through 6. I typed in all my songs downloaded. All right, so we're going to go to stat and calc, go down to number 4. And so when I look at this, I am going to round to the nearest whole number. So I have y equals 1,679 in front of my x, because that's my a value. For my b value, notice that we have a 0.7 here, so I want to round it up 1 to be 13,042. So there's my linear regression equation. I want to take my 11 and sub it in for x. So I have 1,679 times 11 plus 13,042. When I do that, I should get an answer of 31,511. You should have gotten that as your answer. For your R value, we're just going to round to the nearest hundredth. You have 0.92. That would represent a strong positive correlation. Questions on this one? All right, we're going to do one more. So in this one is a little bit different. Now, normally when you have like months or things like that, you're going to start with 1. But sometimes because of how the question is worded, you're just going to use the numbers that are actually there. Here we're talking about chapters of a book. So we're not going to start with 1. These are the actual numbers that you are going to type into your L1. So in your L1, you're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Whoops, and 12. Go ahead and try this one on your own, please. You're going to actually use these actual numbers for your L1. You want to make a prediction of the 14th. So you're going to hit stat and then calc and then down to number 4, which is linear regression. You're going to go down to calculate. So I'm going to round to the nearest whole number again. So 2.95 is really a 3 in front of my x. And then my b value is going to be a 52. So I have 3x plus 52. I want to figure out what the 14th is. So I'm going to have 3 times 14 plus 52 when I go to sub it in. 3 times 14 plus 52 gives you a prediction of 94. You should get a prediction of 94. My R value, if I round to the nearest hundredth, would be 0.91. That would represent a strong positive correlation. Questions on that one? Your homework today is the 3-1 class kick. There is just one of these that you need to do, and then you need to answer some questions about whether things are positive or negative, strong, moderate, or weak.